I'm going to turn this over to Marc. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for the introduction and for the opportunity to talk with everyone here. We're really excited to get everyone in the state ready for the 250th. And today's presentation, feel free to hop in at any moment if you have any questions, leave a question in the chat or raise your hand. I'll try to be as flexible as possible. I want this to be as useful for folks here. So I'm going to start sharing my screen really quickly. And then we can hop into the presentation, and I can also send this out so folks have it for their own records. And we'll give it a second to catch up. We'll give my computer a second to catch up. All right. So as Robin mentioned, this was a presentation that I gave at this year's NJLA, but I've adopted it a little bit just for today. The first thing is that the state is doing a 250th commemoration. And when we speak of the 250th, we mean the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the start of the American Revolution, which is going to be on July 4th, 1776. So this is, if folks are around for the bicentennial, this is similar to what was going on then for commemorative points, but a little different this time around. We are trying to increase the sort of reach of it, interrogate some of those stories and histories that we've heard, and really try to make a big tent for folks to really reflect on what it means for that American Revolution moment and what those ideals were. So in 2018, the state, through legislation, created this entity, which is called RevolutionNJ. It is a partnership between the New Jersey Historical Commission from the Department of State, where I am the chief public historian, and our nonprofit organization partners, Crossroads of the American Revolution. Together, we are RevolutionNJ, and we have been working diligently over the last 7 years on trying to get everyone ready for the 250th. And we see libraries as a central part in this, right? This is often the place where a lot of members of the public have a touch point with cultural history, literature, community, right? And we really want to emphasize that there's a role for libraries in this 250th, and that we have programs that you can tap into, so you don't have to feel sort of the burden of having to develop brand new programming in the next year. And that's also something I want to really emphasize, is that although the July 4th, 2026 is going to be that big kickoff moment that gets all the public attention, it doesn't just end there. Technically, the commemorative period goes to 2033, but we're really looking at this more than just the 7 years of commemoration. We're looking at it as an opportunity to restitch that social fabric, to really look at the importance of civics, community, history, and thinking about how we can reinvigorate some of these touchstones and cultural institutions that we know are so important to our daily lives, and using this moment to bring attention to. Okay. So the pathways into the 250th program that we see for a library specifically, there's a couple of avenues. The first one is to become a proud partner, and I'll talk about that on the next slide a little bit more. But this is our partner program where folks all over the state, different organizations, whether you are a history site or an arts museum or a small business or a nonprofit organization, that there's folks who are signing on to be partners, and then they're collaborating with each other, but also communities, right? The other program is the RevolutionNJ Communities. That's the program where we're trying to get all the municipalities in the state to sign up, and working with the counties also, because the counties themselves have their own 250 commissions that we work with at the state level. But we see that the 250th, and it's always been sort of thought about in this way, is that it's going to be very much local driven and grassroots driven, and each community is going to do what's best for them and what makes the most sense for them. We at the state are here just to help provide resources and programs and initiatives that you can tap into, but we're not mandating any sort of participation or anything like that. Part B is to take part in those programs and events. I'll go over our website in this presentation so you can kind of see where all the resources are and what we have available for folks when it comes to programming. And then part C is, if you are really gung-ho about creating a program for the 250th, or you want to start exploring ways to do events and initiatives, we have a number of resources available for you that can help you do that. So like I promised, here is our sort of first leg of the pathway. It's the public outreach and partnership programs that we have. So in the state, we have, this number has gone up in the last couple of weeks. We are over 150 municipalities and over 260 organizations now. And the Revolutionary Schools program you see on the bottom is way over 50 at this point. It launched in May and is now approaching probably 100 plus. But these are our three sort of pillars of engaging the public. And we would love if you as a library can sign up as a proud partner. I'll show you exactly how you can do that. You go to our website. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second and get that one loaded up for you. All right. Oop. You go to revnj.org. This will be the homepage that you see. And from there, you can go to a number of different tabs. I'm going to walk you through where you would go if you wanted to become a proud partner. You go to get involved and you click on proud partners. Here, I'll give you a sort of an idea of what you're signing up for. This is a free program. There's no cost. All we ask is that you share with us a little bit of information about your institution and what your tentative plans are for the 250th. It doesn't have to be anything solidified. It can just be like, hey, we hope to do this. Here's what we're going to highlight. And you click the apply now, and it'll take you to a form that you fill out. You'll see here too, if you scroll down, all the organizations who have already signed up, who are proud partners now. You can go to their websites and kind of check out what they're doing there. For when it comes to what institutions already have signed up, we have a couple of libraries who have already joined. I'm listing them there. And I know there's more that have signed up since. We have pretty much every 2 weeks, we check our application forms to see who's in, and then we send it to our steering committee for review, and then they get approved. But we know that organizations are signing up. And that's because there's multiple things that are going on. We have had a large blast of emails asking communities to sign up, and also those revolutionary schools to sign up. So you'll see also if you go to get involved, if you go under communities, it's the same exact form for how a community can become one for RevolutionNJ. We have a draft resolution they can sign. City councils pass them, they send it to us, and then we put their township up here. And if you see your township here, then you're good to go. I would reach out to them and ask, hey, what are we doing for the 250th? Can we partner? We would love to be a partner. So those are the two big key touch points for getting involved right away. If we go back into the PowerPoint, see if I can get this back to full screen. Not from beginning. That's not the button I wanted to press, but we're going to go right through it. Are you able to see the screen right now? Okay. Okay. So a reason why we're also getting a huge uptick in communities and proud partners is because of our Revolutionary Schools initiative. This was broadcasted to all of the school districts in New Jersey. And launched on May 7th. And you'll see three fundamental programs here that we're going to be doing in the fall of 2025. The big one is History Happened Here. This is specifically for grades 5 to 12, and the Foundations of Democracies, which is grades K to 5. I'm going to walk us through why these are sort of big template programs. we're trying to get students to think about history and their local communities in a more holistic way. So this program was created to get students to do local research on their communities. Apart from historic organizations and sites in their communities, libraries are usually the best place to get all of the resources regarding newspapers, things that have happened in the past in the communities, and also literature about the community, right? So we really hope that this program resonates with you as much as it has with our local historical societies. So the idea here is they'll take this prompt and they'll read it over and then think about any moment between the founding of the country to this present day that resonates with them and also answers this prompt. As I was mentioning before, the 250th isn't just about the American Revolution, it's the whole 250 years of history. It's so when we think of the American Revolution for the state initiative, we're thinking about the ideas
That
and
was from last week, but it's left over. It was
we're thinking of
delicious.
the ideas of the revolution, specifically what animated people to create this country, and then how those ideas have been wrestled with and grappled with by different groups and organizations and peoples and locations throughout those 250 years. So this means that this is a wide open prompt, which means that students can go in a number of different directions. What we can do to help them, though, is creating and curating materials that sort of highlights figures in our communities or events or things that have happened in our communities that they might not be aware of. I like to use the example of using the sort of like finding aids that a lot of libraries have to help them work through what's at the library. What can they find if they were to look at something like a microfilm or a digital library? And then the end goal of that is they'll go to the historic sites, they'll do some research, and then they'll produce a project that is something that they feel representative of the work that they want to do. And I'm trying to say it's not just the scholarly essay that you see on the right side there. We've had students, because we did this as a pilot for 6 different schools throughout New Jersey, some in North, Central, and South Jersey schools, different districts with rural, city, suburban populations to kind of see where it falls apart or where it works really well. And we're happy to report that it went really well in all 6 pilots. And we got really cool projects from those pilots. The one in the middle is probably my favorite one. It was done by students from Sandy Hook at the MAST program there, where high school students actually created a kids book for students grades K to 3. And then they created this sort of history kids book, and then they went to the class and read it to them, right? So it's this sort of story of what happened at the lighthouse during the American Revolution, and trying to get it to be civically engaged by having students interact with younger students, but then also producing a artistic piece. So that's not solely an academic essay, but is something that is a little bit rooted in their comfort. And then you have folks on the left here who did something like a traditional poster board. We're leaving it wide open to what the final project deliverable is for the students and the classroom. And students are expected to work in small teams. So you might have a group of students show up to your library looking for like one project, one story that they would love to highlight. So what can you do to help students right now for the 250th? And I want to just emphasize, if you're going to take part in History Happened Here, I think that is more than enough of work for the 250th, right? Like if you're looking for something to do for the 250th and you are able to do some of the bullet points here, I think that is an awesome service for the larger state when it comes to planning and commemorating the 250th. So the big things is really helping curate a selection of local New Jersey history books, especially community figures and events, and having that be in a space that is discoverable by these students. Because they're going to be coming to your institutions looking to identify figures that they can dive deeper into. I've attached a case study here. This is from my hometown of Garfield. They got a grant to help them sort of highlight all of the resources that they have available at the Garfield Public Library. My favorite story that I've recently learned about, it has been the sort of labor strikes that happened in Garfield during the early 1900s. and how that has not really been studied often or talked about. There's one book that came out a couple of years ago that did a great job. Oftentimes that story gets overshadowed by the Patterson Silk Strike, right? We're talking about the Passaic Clifton strikes of the 1920s. So that kind of story can then be asked, like if a student came in and is like, hey, I want to learn more about that. I just heard about this. They can go to this finding aid. The library can be like, hey, yeah, we have a whole bunch of information about that. Here's some newspapers from the time period. Here's some stories. And that would be perfect for them to find some primary research skills and then also some secondary sources that will then allow them to do the project. You can also help by inviting local historians or organizations to give presentations and let students in classes know that, hey, there's going to be this event that is going to be a historian talking about a particular instance in this community. And maybe a teacher would be interested to go, or a group of students can attend. The History App in Here program is the big one because that's going to be grades 5 to 12. But we're hoping that that the grades K to 5 aren't left behind either. So we've created a sort of civics toolkit that's really focused in on teaching students the foundations of democracy and civics in this state and in this country. So there's a toolkit on our website which has instructional resources and questions that are grade appropriate and get students to think about questions like, what does it mean to be part of a community? Or how can you make sure that your voice is heard? And things like that to really get students to think about this moment. That is something that if you're an educational specialist and you would want to do a program around that's based on the 250th, you can dive into those toolkits for both History App in Here and this particular project and create programming around it. A lot of the resources are already based in the learning standards of New Jersey. So you'll see what is highlighted for which particular activity, what standards it would meet. So a lot of the heavy lifting is done for both of these programs. And it's really been designed in a way that you can pick and choose what makes the most sense for you. So you don't have to do all of it. You can just hone in on a very specific point. Another thing that we have available, apart from those two big programs, is you can reserve a traveling exhibit. This is going to be opening up in late summer, so at the end of August. We have reservations for standing exhibits that will be going throughout the state. We're planning on creating multiple copies of this. Some of them will be double-sided, some of them will be single-sided, depending on the space of your institution and how much room you have. Think of these as like almost like 3 foot wide, 6 to 7 feet tall roll-ups that you can pull up and then set up in a space. And these are going to be highlighting figures from the American Revolution that often don't get talked about. They're all New Jersey-based people from backgrounds of either being a loyalist, or if you were a patriot or indigenous or African-American, enslaved, free, a businessman, or even an everyday soldier. It's trying to tell you the everyday story of the American Revolution. And it's been researched by a number of historians and passed through our advisory council. So all of the research in it is based on historical facts and backgrounds, and it guides you towards further reading if you would want to dive deeper into the figures, and then also provides educational resources too. So there's going to be lesson plans attached to each panel. And there's also going to be a contemporary component where it connects this particular story to the present day. We're hoping that these will be traveling wide and far throughout the state, and they will be probably reserved for about 2 to 3 weeks. And you can have it at your institution free of charge. I think we're only asking folks to be able to pick it up out of Trenton. And in some instances, if one of our colleagues or staffers live nearby, we can maybe drop it off if that works. But this is going to be launching in the fall also. And I mentioned this earlier, we have a ton of resources. So if none of these project ideas or initiatives are resonating with you, we do have things that you might be able to take a look at and create something that works for you. The thing you see on the right is our handbook. That's available on our website. If you go to the Discover RevolutionNJ tab, you'll see a resources tab, and it has a list to all of these different documents, webinars, and like strategic and interpretive frameworks that can help you kind of grapple with the current state of the 250th and what we're hoping to do in the state. I want to really highlight that there's a lot of resources here that are sort of trying to really merge the different types of sectors we find ourselves in. So like the placemaking for the 250th resource is a great way to get small businesses, nonprofit organizations, schools, history sites, all of them working together to create something for the 250th in their communities. We have resources for studying figures such as African-American Revolutionary War soldiers. That bibliography also has a number of resources about women and children and indigenous people too. So it's a wealth of further reading. And then we also have our suggested readings, which are, if you're like coming into this completely cold and you have no idea where to start, we have some readings related to the revolution in New Jersey, and also just a more national view of the Revolutionary War. And you'll see in the handbook that we've taken a particular methodological approach. We're trying to make everything participatory in the sense that we want to bring in communities into the organization to start developing programs with them and for them so that they feel a sense of skin in the game and that they are being represented in the programs that are being created. So participatory research is our sort of call for the 250th. It's supposed to make programs that are impactful and meaningful and have a longer life outside of just that July 4th, 2026 moment. In order to do that, you have to kind of really, really work on creating partnerships and collaborating and sharing resources. And I know folks are stretched thin, right? Budgets are being cut, staff hours are burnout, and I don't even want to go down this whole tube. And we're feeling it too at the state level and at other organizations. So the importance of collaboration in this moment is even more important, I think. And the types of programming you can do can be so wide-reaching, right? So in our handbook, we have an example of a public library wants to learn about how to do participatory budgeting and why that would tie into the 250th, because it's a civically engaged democratic process. It's teaching students and members of the public how tax dollars can be spent, and it's completely tied into those ethos of the revolutionary ideals. So we think that by creating some of these like engaged programmings, you might be able to get people into the 250th by not just talking about guys with tri-corner hats and muskets and battles, which sometimes can be alienating to certain people. And for folks who are not thinking about history in New Jersey, this is a great way to get them in and then start talking about the different stories, especially when you can have your community's voices represented in the types of programming and issues that you're looking to solve. That being said, I know we talked a lot about kids programming or young adults, but we also want to stress that this can be a great opportunity for adults, right? Especially if you're trying to curate a selection of books. We have interpretive themes that you can use. These are things such as the movement of people or political participation, these larger ideas that you can tie to the 250th by looking at just the history of those stories throughout New Jersey's history. So the movement of people can easily look at immigration, right, in the 1890s, or talk about Ellis Island, or it can talk about labor, right, labor issues throughout the state. Political participation. New Jersey has a rich history, especially when it comes to the women's right to vote. There's so many different stories you could tackle and provide a curated selection of books on all of those. If you're already not doing it, I'm sure you all are. There's public lectures and film screenings that are tied to these themes. That can be another route you can take. If your community is already a 250th community, you can help host planning meetings or listening sessions with community members, and then also promoting just 250th events that are happening at the state, county, or local level. That is my contact information. I will stop screen sharing, but I'm more than happy to just brainstorm and talk with folks or take any questions now. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. We do have a couple questions. I'll start with those. One was asking, where were the pilots? Who did you partner with?
Okay, I can't give you all of them on the top of my head. I know Monroe Township, Mast and Sandy Hook. We did one in Camden. I can't tell you exactly the name. And I believe Livingston was another one. But there's two other ones that I would have to get.
Okay. Another question was, where can we find more information about the traveling exhibit?
Yeah, so we're gonna have a marketing blast in August. Once that registration portal is active, we're gonna have more information about that. I can tell you a little bit about it now, though. There's 10 figures in it that are going to be highlighted, or 10 different stories that we want to highlight, and they range from folks who, someone like Captain Hyler, right? There's going to be Colonel Ty, Oliver Cromwell, some of the, let me write my contact in the chat really quick. Some of them are going to be similar to the faces of the revolution that you might see on Crossroads of the American Revolution's website. We want to really highlight the figures that people can relate to, right? Whether it's like a widow who has to deal with what happens to her property now that her husband's died and she was on the loyalist side, which is like the story of the Demarists, right, up in Bergen County and whatnot. And we really want to make sure that folks look at that and we're like, wow, this is a very human thing. So the traveling exhibit its goal is to have an opening panel that will tell you, all right, here's what the 250th is, here's what we're hoping to achieve, here's 10 stories that help you sort of deal with the complexity of the moment and the complexity of the present. And then the concluding panel will be an interactive panel where folks can ask a certain question of members of the audience. So we have, we're still in the final stages of designing that one, but it's going to have folks reflect on what they just read and leave their viewpoints in sort of like a slotted card technique.
A few more. One you mentioned briefly, somebody's asking about your contact information. Is it on the website?
It is on the website under our staff, but I can just drop it in the chat right there. It's my name, so mark.lorenc@sos.nj.gov.
I can confirm it's easy to find. That's how I found you after a conference. Okay, another question. Will participants have links we can share amongst each other to share on our social media? So if we want to share and sort of collaborate and sort of promote what others are doing, will that be all sort of centralized?
Yeah, so actually that's a really good point. Let me share one more thing on the screen. All right, so we have an events calendar. If you scroll down to our main, so here's another thing about being a proud partner. We ask folks to just share what's going on in their organization, and then we put it and blast it on our events calendar. On the main page, we have some of our big programs that we're doing. So you'll see Tavern Talks is heading to Fairlawn on August 3rd, one of our flagship programs. We have a sort of 5K race series going to Monmouth Battlefield. But if you go to things to do and you go to events, this was a great event that was in Montclair that we went to, the AAPI Lantern Festival this past year. So we try to go to as many different organizations and places as possible. But you'll see if you have any program that's coming up, we put up all of our Proud Partners programs on here. And this is a great way to get more eyes on your programming. We also blast it on our social media. When we blast it on our social media, we tend to do all of the hashtags and the tagging and the collaborating with the institutions so that we're able to see what's going on, but also putting it on other folks' radar. So by becoming a proud partner, you're able to then connect with other folks that way. We could also help facilitate those. So if you have a particular partner you see on a list that you would want to work with, or you're having trouble getting in touch with the county leads or something like that, we would be happy to put you in touch because we know who the point person is because they put in the applications and things like that.
Yeah.
So we would love to help do some of that collaborative activities across county lines.
That ties into the next question, which is how can we connect with organizations across county lines to do collaborative activities? And can you help
Yeah,
facilitate?
yeah, for sure. I think the best way to do it is just reach out to me and tell me what you exactly want to do. And then I'll see what I can do to figure out who to put you in touch with and how to get you guys connected. Right now, we work with a good chunk of the counties, but like we mentioned before, each county is doing their own 250th. It's based off of a little bit of what we're doing, but they also have their own stories that they want to highlight. So we're all in touch with each other and we all work with each other. We do twice a year, we try to meet up and share what everyone's doing in the county so that folks are aware of each other. But you know, things sometimes get it. It's a little overwhelming with how much is going on. So sometimes things fall through the cracks. But I think a direct contact with me and I can put you in touch with folks and organizations that are doing the work that I hope you collaborate with.
Um, Related also to events on the calendars,
Yeah.
how do we get our events on your calendar? Somebody tried earlier and couldn't find a link. Where would we find that, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so the best way to do that would be to email comms at RevNJ. So let me send you that. I'll put that in the chat right now. This is going to go to our communications manager who runs the events calendar. His name is Mike Keeler. So Mike Keeler, comms at revnj.org. So he'll first double check to make sure you're a proud partner or a RevNJ community, and then he would put it up on the website. And if you have any images or registration links or anything like that, he'll ask for those so that he can then put that up on the website.
Okay. This is a great question. Also, do you already have a speakers bureau for these events that we can use, or any sort of trusted partners and knowledgeable resources?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. We've a lot of folks have been partnering with, you know, known entities in their communities, right? Local historians that they go to. Apart from the list of books you should read, right? If you go to our RevNJ resources tab again, we do have a sort of 10 books about the revolution in New Jersey. Those would be folks that I would feel would be great to reach out to because they have already done those types of work for us. And we also have a bunch of webinar series, right? So we did one called A Bundles of Silence, which looked at scholars looked at these themes. They're not all New Jersey based, but they kind of give you an idea of what direction folks can take if they wanted to look at that broader 250 years as it relates to those themes. Um, is there a particular person that you would be looking for? Because we can help also facilitate that. So if you have a particular event or a topic you would want someone to talk about, I can also put you in touch with folks that we might know or counties or organizations that have done that.
Another question is, do you have resources for school assemblies?
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I don't want to answer as if I know exactly what that would entail.
Mike, do you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Hi, I'm actually Dorothy Kelly working with Mike Bannock.
Okay,
Okay, I can tell you exactly what I'm talking about since
sure.
I wear like 500 hats with this Rev New Jersey. I'm
Yeah,
associated with the library, I'm associated with our local historical society and our 250 committee for the
awesome.
town. So I am reaching out to the schools tomorrow. I'm talking with administrators, and they all have cultural arts programming. And as part of that, I would like to have them do some assemblies for K through 5, 6 through 8, and maybe high school, probably not, but different assemblies that would be for the whole school that would engage kids. And they're really wide open, but for other topics, there are resources, there are groups that do school assemblies, so they know basically how to communicate with certain age groups, what's age appropriate, and what's fun. Do
Yeah.
you have resources like that that would tie into Revolution New Jersey? So, somebody talks about women or something, but assemblies, programs like that.
I don't know if we have a direct program for assemblies. I know we have lesson plans and educational resources and guides for particular topics. If you go to our website, those are listed under, I'll drop the link in there, but if you go under the education tab, there's toolkits for teachers and students for the History App and Here program. But under the Dig Deeper page, we have all sorts of different lesson plans we've created for students who wanted to engage with our resources. But I don't know if that would fit within like an assembly structure. Maybe someone who's
Maybe
well versed in like taking parts of it and then maybe incorporating into that.
it'd be
But
like a presentation or a performance, something
yeah,
like that kind of thing. Because there are arts groups in New Jersey that do things especially for, like, they do school assemblies, they also do library programs too. So
right.
I was wondering if you guys had pulled together a group of recommended, you know, like reenactors, but not with guns, but for a stage
Sure.
performance or something, if you had anything like that.
Now that you mentioned that, I do know one of our proud partners, which is the Sons of the American Revolution. They
Mhm.
do school visits,
Okay.
and they'll come dressed up in reenactment and talk about the history. And they might be able to do that at a larger assembly platform. But we don't have apart from what I placed
Mhm.
it there, we don't have like a list of approved resources or anything for school
Okay.
assemblies. Now that I'm hearing a little bit more about it, I don't think we do.
Okay.
But some of those materials can definitely be adapted, I think, if you have someone willing to look into it and maybe put a piece together.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. If anybody has any, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Can I turn the questions around onto you guys?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So like, what is it that you all want to do for the 250th? Like, is there any fears or hesitations or worries or um, goals that you might have?
I'm just going to state out there, please unmute yourself and feel free to chime in.
And there's no wrong answer here. I just want to like know folks a little bit better because I don't get to be in the library system like often, right? I get to go visit, but I'm not behind the scenes. Oh, I have two mics. Okay. Who wants to go first? Okay, yeah.
Hi, Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg. I also sit with Dorothy. I think the whole thing about all of this is just to drive community engagement, right?
Mm,
I mean, however, any of this is about sharing all these resources and just making the community aware that there's a lot of options and a lot of material and I'm certainly excited about hearing about this. I love the fact that there's this events calendar. I'm going to, talk offline to Dorothy and Mike about maybe, getting Milburn, we're in Milburn Short Hills into this rotation sooner rather than later. Anything that can, highlight, like I love what Dorothy said in terms of the and for kids programming as well as adult programming. I mean, I know that if there was a, food of the American Revolution,
mm,
if that was a tab, I certainly would be interested or suggested reading or, I think, something like that that's going to, a sewing workshop, to name, I mean, a few, options. I don't know if those resources would be available but,
yeah,
when I think of my elementary school curriculum and, just looking at, just all those things and tying it all together and I think that it's not one size fits all, but there's certainly enough varied topics that
Yeah.
somebody's going to be interested in one of them, and just trying to drive engagement with a larger audience through all these resources. That would be my hope. But knowing of all these resources, I'll speak offline to our director and our director of the Short Hills Malvern Short Hills Historical Association. And I guess, really trying to harness all these resources and deploy them, I guess, is the big leadership challenge, if you will, to kind of pick and choose from this menu and then, get it out to the masses. So
And
that's
I like to just remind folks that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you have
right.
like a yearly activity or initiative you do already, maybe it's just switching the prompt for that year to
Yeah.
reflect the 250th. We're working with the Arts Council on a number of projects, and they're doing the Public Arts Mural in Newark Terminal, right? Those applications are still open. So if you know any artists who would like to put it up at Terminal A, it's open. But they took their annual theme and just said, hey, let's reflect on the 250th and some of these ideals, and what will artists come up with. And it was just a small pivot. They already had their programming in place, and they just switched the prompt, and it's leading to engagement in that way. Is that the real Mike Bannock now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Feeling tremendous pressure to chime in. It seems like all of the Mike Bannocks are speaking. I'm inspired by what you said earlier about maybe using our collections or using our collection development to try to tell different stories of the time, getting away from the three-cornered hat and the muskets, like you said, but looking more closely maybe at the lives of ordinary people, the ideals of the time, the things that motivated, this Enlightenment kind of thinking, and maybe coming up with book displays or recommended readings that tie into the revolutionary idea, but without necessarily being about war.
Yeah.
So that's
a lot of the more popular public interactive pieces are really simple. Like folks have been doing like whiteboards with post-its, and it's like, what is your wish for the 250th, or what is your wish for 250 years? What do you hope this country looks like? And that can be just such a like rewarding, engaging activity for folks to kind of think about where they want to go, right? Knowing that this commemoration is going to be past focus, but as our motto for RevolutionNJ is that we're engaging the past so that we can shape the future, right? It's a forward thinking moment.
I have a wishful question. We know there was the grant that came and passed from the state library. Do you know if there will be any other related grants for those of us that were not in a position to apply, or for those that did not get selected?
So our project grants would be the one I would normally point you all towards, and that's under. Let me put that in the chat. But I know our recent year's deadline has passed, and I'm not sure if the CHIP program, which is the county history partnership program, where a lot of smaller grant awards are passed out, if your particular county's deadline has passed. But that would be the other potential granting agency or granting opportunity that you might be able to use. Right now, it's not. Right now, like some of those are not available because the deadline just passed. That doesn't. I don't want to guarantee anything because the budget is what it is with the state right now, and we have a flat budget, so our funding has been not affected with the federal changes that have been going on. But some of our institutions where we would normally tell you all to go to, like the Council for the Humanities has been affected. So I'm just trying to be honest with what the funding opportunities are. There hasn't been anything allocated for organizations themselves. That might be different at the county level. Maybe your county has like a small grant opportunity. I know that the CHIP program was a potential route if you wanted to apply. And I left the information there. You would have to find the contact for your county CHIP agent to see what the deadline was. And if maybe there's another opportunity through their programming.
And thank you for your.
Which is why I think I focus so much on what's already available for you all, like through us, that's free, so you don't have to invent the History Happen Here program. It's just kind of like, hey, if you can take, I know it's nothing here is, it involves staff time for sure. Obviously, there's labor involved in curating resources and pointing people towards it. But hopefully it's not an onerous lift to be able to go through your existing collections and pinpoint students towards a particular set of books.
And I think this is when it'll be so important that we partner with our community historical societies, because our towns are rich and full of history and people and places and events. And we don't want to be competing with them. We want to, share this and explore it and live it up kind of in a big way. But like the last thing, I don't want to like plan a big program only to find out that my historical society has one planned on the same night or even just the following night. Same with grant opportunities and shared stories. That's sort of like my concern. In Westfield, same with Milburn, lots of history, and I'll do my best to share the spotlight rather than compete with them, because the last thing we want to do is cause a lot of problems in terms of attendance to a program versus getting maybe a big speaker, or what kind of collections or resources that they are sharing at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Passaic 250s is well on their way. They just had a huge event this past week with Washington's tent visiting, and they had a whole bunch of programming under it. So I'm not sure if folks have been in touch with anyone from their 250th planning committee, but they've been doing a lot of work. And I know Hudson is starting to pick up some energy. And Essex we have institutions we partner with in Essex, like the big museums and whatnot, who've already created programming, like the Newark Museum. Basically created a booklet which highlights, similar to the advice I was giving folks here today. They didn't have to reinvent the wheel. They just looked at their current collection and curated a booklet that highlights the themes. And I think it's a great move to do that kind of like lift to really tie things in together.
It's great. Many of us already partner with the Newark Museum for museum passes.
Awesome. And I did want to put on folks' radar, we have September 17th, there's going to be the Ken Burns screening in Newark at the NJPAC, where Ken Burns is coming to do a sort of a preview of his American Revolution documentary, which is debuting on PBS in November. And New Jersey just so happens to be like a huge part of that documentary, just because of our relationship to the Rev War and how much of it took place here. So he's coming and he's going to be talking a little bit about it. And we're actually turning into a day-long event for teachers and students. So there's going to be workshops in the morning for them to take part in. But we wanted to, the public ticket sales are going to be going live, I believe, at the end of next week. And you'll see it if you follow us on RevolutionNJ on Facebook, Instagram, our LinkedIn. You won't miss it. If you sign up for our newsletter, which is another way to keep in touch, if you just go to the homepage and scroll all the way on the bottom, you'll hear about all the big things that are coming up when it comes to programming, launch dates, resources, or even highlighting what communities and partner organizations are doing.
Anyone else? Oh wait, hold on. There's some more. Oh, somebody put in the comment that resources can also be found on New Jersey History Day 2026. Yeah, and helpful to be cognizant of large events so that we're not conflicting with them. Someone asked about the Ken Burns info.
Yep, let me see if I can get you that. We haven't put it since it's not live yet, but I can give you the event hold so that you're aware of it. This is where the event page would be for it. And once the registration link goes live, you'll see it updated. But if you wanted to hear a little bit more about his documentary itself, let me see if I can get you the press release for that one really quickly. This is the information related to the documentary itself.
Great. Okay, all the links are in the chat. Anybody else want to share what they're doing or have any questions? Okay, well, I'd really like to thank Marc for doing this for us. This was fantastic. And thank you all for joining, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out. Or if you want to just brainstorm ideas, I'm more than happy to take some time and chat with you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end this and end the recording now.